I should have I should have looked up and found his last name. So Scott, if by any rare chance you're listening to this, thank you for your tutelage. Um, but yeah, I wrestled for 2 years. Wasn't that great, but got a lot of exposure to it. And that eventually led to, in the future, at the very young age of 29 years old, starting Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Well, Josiah LaDuke, it's great having you on the show. It looks like we might have had just a touch of technical difficulty. So we're recording now. I just want to summarize the fact that you are about ready to make your MMA debut for 247 Fighting Championships December 21st at the Monroeville Convention Center. You just talked about, but prior to wrestling or MMA, your main sport from 8 to 18 range was football. Talk a little bit more about that. What was your position and what are some highlights from your football career, and how do you think that translates over, whether it's the work ethic or explosivity or your mind or whatever it is? How do you think that translates over what your position was into fighting?
Well, the positions that I played varied over the years. And I'd say for the most part, I didn't play. It's probably easier to talk about what I didn't play as opposed to what I did play. Honestly, for anybody who grew up playing football all your life, you played every single different position for the most part. But I didn't play a whole lot of running back, not a whole lot of wide receiver. Primarily, what I did was a lineman for the most part. And a lot of that had to do with the fact, especially getting into high school, the fact that we didn't have that many big players. I stand right around 6 feet tall, 5'10", 185 pounds. And it wasn't that much different back then whenever I was older. And we just didn't have that many big people. Just to give you an idea of that, I was 195 pounds in my high school career, and I played center. So
Oh,
that's,
oh boy. Yeah.
yeah, that was my position. So Riverside High School did not have a whole lot of beefy boys, at least back then. So that was mostly what I played on offense. On defense, I played the line a couple times, sometimes nose guard, but in my high school career, and what I enjoyed the most was linebacker. I love playing linebacker. And as far as what it is that translates to mixed martial arts and what translates to what I'm doing now, first and foremost is the obvious, the work ethic, everything that comes with that. I'm no stranger to endurance, to pain, to gritting your teeth and getting through something that's extremely difficult. That's something that anybody that goes through any type of training regimen and any type of grueling sport like that is accustomed to. Um, Other than that, I would say explosivity is probably the biggest thing. I think that you see that a lot with people that do football or that have played football and then come into sports. You can see it in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu whenever they come in. They don't know what's going on, but they have. It's not accurate to say that it's comparable to wrestling. Wrestling is much more adroit. The wrestler is much more adroit when it comes to grappling, obviously, but the football players are similar in the sense that they have a solid base. They understand the idea of somebody grabbing them and trying to shift them back and forth. So they're familiar with that. I would say those are the primary things that translate from those very early years of playing football to now.
Great. Thanks for that breakdown. Talk about at 29, what got you into jiu-jitsu? Where did you start training? When did you kind of start broadening your training out to do MMA?
Well, like many people today can probably say, I was the reasons why I started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu was actually a Jocko Willink podcast.
Oh,
Surprise, surprise, not very surprising. I'm a millennial man. um, I was listening to a Jocko Willink podcast, and he said, what did he say in that excerpt? He said, the greatest sport that you can get into to learn self-defense and to get yourself in shape and to make new friends is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I said, screw it. I knew that I had to find something to do because drinking had been a big problem for me in the past, and I saw it creeping back into my life. And I knew that I had to find something new to do. And for anybody who's been a bad drinker and needed to get rid of it, you know that the biggest thing is your friends, who you hang out with, where you hang out, and what you do with your free time, obviously. So knowing that, and after hearing that excerpt from the podcast, I literally was sitting at my computer. I used to live in Beaver Falls at the time. I literally looked at my computer, nearest jiu-jitsu school to me, and found where I train now, Gracie Baja, Beaver County, and that's where I've been ever since then. As far as where it translated into mixed martial arts, it's a bit more of a tenuous connection because we're not known to be an MMA gym. We don't have that many people. Actually, I mean, prior to Chase Boyd coming over and training with us, we had nobody that was active, nobody that was experienced. But after the successes that I had in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, at least at the local level, going against younger guys, I can't say that for the higher level. At the higher level, I go against people my age, at least so far. But at the younger level, I was consistently beating people 10 years younger than me. And after being in that world for a little bit, and after talking to different people, for example, my coach, Travis List, he used to compete in mixed martial arts about, I think it was 10 years ago. He won an amateur belt at lightweight, I believe it was. I can't remember what promotion it was for. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, after talking with him a little bit about it and just getting exposed to the idea of it, I decided to throw my hat in the ring and just see what happens. Have some fun with it and see how far it goes.
Well, first off, what a wonderful lifestyle change, and congratulations to you and everybody that's in recovery from problem drinking or any type of problem behavior, obsession, addiction, and that is a huge deal. So I'm very thankful to hear that. I'm glad you're kind of open with that. And people that are watching this, you can change. You might not become an MMA fighter after it, but you can change. You brought up the idea of changing your people, places, and things. I like to always say, as a former rehab counselor that worked in a rehab outside of Philadelphia for 5 years and worked on the front lines of the opiate epidemic and things like that, that therapeutic lifestyle changes. Easy to remember, like TLCs, like tender loving care, but therapeutic lifestyle changes. And that's what you're talking about, right? Like you have to have, you're not going, no one really gets sober or changes their life from any bad behavior in a room by themselves, staring at a wall, So it's always good, whatever that happens to be. I now have the privilege and the honor of working for the VA, counseling combat vets who have literally fought and bled for our country. And it's an absolute honor to work with them, but it's the same for anybody. Particularly, we always say addiction is avoidance and recovery is connection. And obviously you're showing the connection to the people, to the gym, to MMA, but then I'm sure there's other good, healthy connections in your life once you stop the problem drinking. So just incredible. Always, always so important to bring that up. So thank you for doing a bit of a mental health shout out there. Let's talk about, it's great that Chase, the Creation Crowbar Boyd, is training at your gym. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, I'm going to say it in a funny way, but let's talk about a highlight of your training so far and a low light, like you got tabbed or something was really bad or you left your chin up and hopefully nobody knocked you out. We have to be kind to sparring partners, but kind of like the welcome to the NFL mindset that people ask when it comes to training. So what was kind of a positive early training and what was kind of a wake-up call early before you got to the point you are now?
Interesting. I say the low point, the thing that really hit me hard was some of the kicks, and especially in particular the switch kick. Sure. It was especially after getting as good as I did at grappling and being so used to getting into that flow state, because anybody who does anything like this knows that eventually you get into the muscle memory phase where you're no longer thinking about anything. You're just automatically doing it. And after getting to that point and being used to either dominating people in that place or going toe to toe with good people and being good, just the humbling experience of somebody putting a pad over their right leg and saying, hey, do a switch kick, and trying to do that, I could feel how bad it was, and that's why that's one of my favorite moments is because that's probably my most improved strike after training it and training it and training it. But that was the low point. I'd say the high point was the sparring session I had with the Croatian crowbar not that long ago, where he gave me these, nice little gifts,
Gorgeous.
over both eyes. And now I'm walking around looking like a lunatic with two black
Well,
eyes. So yeah, that was fun.
Chase, the Croatian crowbar Boyd, is a very handsome guy. You're a very handsome guy. He might just be trying to mug you up a little bit to keep.
He didn't want me taking away any of his game.
There you
Yeah,
go.
you're absolutely right. So that was a highlight. I'm very happy about the coaches that I have, and everybody that's there. And if Chase wasn't there, I would still be game and I would still be prepared. But having him come into the training environment, actually after the fact, after I had decided to do this, it was a stroke of luck. We're all very fortunate to have him there.
Well, that's incredible. And for people that may not know, you can look Chase Croatian crowbar up on Tapology. He is 6-3. He's an amateur fighter, so he is also fighting at 247 Fighting Championships, Brawl in the Burgh 25. I just talked to him today. He's not going to be able to come on due to commitments and things prior to his fight. We're hoping to have him on afterwards, if he gets a big win. But I'm sure you have figured out that an advanced amateur fighter who's going into his 10th fight obviously is a big addition to have. So, and you will be that person at some point in the future. And so obviously hats off to him and everybody at the Gracie Barra Gym. For you, you've competed in a contact sport, wrestling, and obviously football being the most one. What, if any, do you think will be the adjustment? I personally think it's always cardio, because particularly in football, wrestling is known, people have to grind for 3 minutes or 2 minutes. But in football, which is absolutely incredibly physical, there's a lot of small recovery periods. And I've seen a lot of football players really have to go into the mindset of explode and hold, then just explode, 30-second break type thing. Not taking anything away from football, but that's why it can be a 60-minute game where people play about half of that and have a lot of breaks and recoveries, versus your debut is going to be 6 minutes long. Hopefully you come out of it feeling like you should have gone another 6 minutes. But what are your thoughts as far as adrenaline dump, those type of things coming into your debut fight?
I think that what you just said is probably accurate. I think cardio is the biggest adjuster. And I see that. The reason I say that is number one, because I see that in my training. Grappling is its own type of cardio. It's its own type of thing. And it obviously does translate over. If I was just sitting on the couch not doing anything, I'd be having a harder time. But I noticed right away that striking by itself is a very different cardio. And combining the striking and wrestling in particular, combining striking and the grappling is taxing, but more specifically, the punches and the strikes and with wrestling combined, very, very taxing. So that's something to consider for sure. I think that's going to be a big translation. And then I think the other obvious one is just going to be getting comfortable with using my strikes in tandem with my grappling. And it's funny that we brought to that point, because I recently rewatched AJ Agazarm. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who that is. Yeah, high level. Yeah, right. Yeah, famous high level grappler who had a few MMA fights. He fought in Bellator a couple times. And one of his first fights in there, he had a very difficult time connecting his striking with his grappling. He would either stand strike, and then, or B, he'd stop and then go and try and go for it, as opposed to trying to combine the two. And I thought that was fascinating, because, that person is 50 times more accomplished than I'll ever be in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and is a very top-notch competitor. But to see him struggling with that in that moment, at that fight in particular, made me realize how difficult that transition can be. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and be optimistic. Maybe that's actually going to work out better for me than him, because he was doing that since he was 10 years old. You know what I mean? For years and years is what he did. So it might have been hard for him to translate it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that can be very true. The expert level of anything can be super helpful, but at that expert level, it can also become challenging for neuroplasticity, because the neural pathways in his brain were so conditioned. We always say neurons that fire together stay together, and in mental health counseling and getting people to change their neuroplasticity, which is the fancy term for you can learn a new thing. You can learn new emotional control. If somebody has emotional dysregulation where they drink or fight, I'm talking, fight, not a conditioned legal fight. But, do anything like that, drive 160 miles an hour, whatever reckless behavior it is, those neurons fire together and they stay together, and you have to rewire them. Obviously, at his level or anyone's high level, it can be a little tricky. I've often said when it comes to MMA, and I think some people would probably agree, you want to get great, but you want to start out by being good everywhere. If you are great at one spot, and I occasionally bring up Ben Askren on this show, and it's mainly because incredible wrestler, undefeated in MMA, but there were many, many fights in his career at Bellator before coming to UFC that you could tell he had no striking. And it was just by his sheer wrestling determination. I mean, there were some bad ones in Bellator. He kept winning. And I happen to know that behind the scenes, which everyone can make their own decisions in life, he decided to never work on striking. He trained at a good gym. They could have certainly given him striking. He decided to never work on striking because he wanted to show it. Yeah. I've talked to people that were there in the training room with him.
I did not know that.
And when I say never, I mean to the point where other of his pro UFC fighter friends were saying, hey, like, I'll take it easy. I'll go slow. Like, let's work. I'm not saying maybe never, but not at the level that he needed to be. Even now, which is awesome for him, I believe he's retired and doing wrestling, which is spectacular. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shade on the guy. I just think MMA is its own sport. 1996 is a long time ago. And those guys that started off representing one sport were groundbreakers, absolutely monsters. But they'd have to have learned a whole new level to compete at this level. And that's not a bad thing. That's everything. You ever watch 1930s, 1920s football? I've seen some. And there's a guy in the Hall of Fame that was a lineman like you, sir, at 155 pounds in the NFL in the Hall of Fame. So if somebody thinks now that a 155-pound offensive lineman would survive in the NFL, even though he's in the Hall of Fame, obviously that wouldn't happen. So people develop, sports change. And obviously, I used to remember that guy's name clearly. If he was around today, he would probably just be successful at something else. Obviously, I wouldn't call into question his ability. He would just have to apply it somewhere else. Let's talk about the matchup. How the matchup come together. You're taking on Brian Mitchell. He's 1-0. And I ask that because obviously in many ways, 0-0 versus 0-0 is the kind of the goal for a debut, when you're both starting out, but you decided to take on a guy with at least one fight and one win. So what are your thoughts on that matchup?
I think that overall, Brian is a good fighter from the little bit I have seen. Looking at the fight, I think it's kind of hard to say what all weapons that he's going to bring to the table because not that many things happened. You know what I'm saying? I think he had an excellent double leg. I think he exhibited really nice top control, and I think he took his back and he choked him, and I think he did a really good job with that. I also think his opponent probably has never seen the inside of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym. I could be wrong about that, but from the little bit that I saw, it didn't look like he really knew what was happening. So, yeah, he's 1-0, and you're 100% right that usually it's much more wise to just go 0-0, find another 0-0 guy. But I'm not strangers to Brian entirely. I've competed against him before at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a little different, obviously. There's no punches being thrown. But I'm not a total stranger to him as a competitor. And I think that as far as his debut concerned, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. A win is a win. Good for him. I think there's a lot left to be said as far as what he could do, what I could do, what that might look like. So that's what I think about the matchup.
Wow, what a cerebral, honest, and fair analysis. I often say, you can't be an MMA fighter without an opponent who agrees to fight you. The smack talking and the bad blood really doesn't happen until the higher levels because you really won't get anywhere in MMA, whether it's for fun or career or whatever, without people agreeing to fight you and being, willing to learn. So obviously, like you said, hats off to him and getting a debut win. There are certainly people that go into MMA that have glaring weaknesses in one of the in one of the disciplines, and that is part of MMA. There are even professional champs that their amateur debut they lost, or sometimes even their pro debut they lost because they had to develop. They had kind of increase their skills and ability. So hats off to his opponent from last time getting in the fight, but clearly there's some things to work on. It sounds like you have a very learner's mindset to know that, not everything in the cage might feel super, super smooth. You're going to have to connect things, but it's one of those things where you won't really have anything to work on until you experience it, and then you can take away. Exactly. So what are your thoughts on people coming out to support you? Are you mainly going to have an in-person crowd or a pay-per-view crowd? And what are your thoughts and comments to your fans and supporters?
I think that it's going to be about 50-50. I think that there's going to be several individuals showing up to see me in person, as well as people tuning in to watch it live. And I think it'll be a decent turnout, especially for a debut, just because, the aforementioned dynamic that we brought up before about changing your environment with sobriety and everything. I've made many different connections with my group, my club, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, through business, just in general. And they're all very, very supportive of me, just in general. Even when I went to Pans back in November, everybody from the gym donated to try and help make it a little bit more financially possible for me to do that, because it's very expensive. So I am very grateful. I think there'll be a decent turnout. And yeah, I'm thankful for everybody that supports me, that's in my corner.
Well, I was ready to wrap it up, but then you mentioned going to Pan Nationals. What was that experience like for you? What was a takeaway from that experience of competing at the national level?
It was really different. It was a lot of fun. And the reason I say it was different is because usually when you go to a local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competition, there's at least one guy there that does not belong, meaning that he's never competed before. He's probably not very good at the gym. And he just said, hey, let me go and try this. And I don't mean belong as in he shouldn't be there. I mean that he's not going to win. And we all know that. It's the type of person you pass their guard in the first 30 seconds of the match, no problem. You could keep doing it like a revolving door. It happens, right? You get matched up like that sometimes. But at that level at Pans, there was nobody like that. I did win the first 3 matches, lost the 4th, but every single one of those wins were hard won. There was nobody there that just rolled over and died. So that was a lot of fun. It was the first time competing at Masters Division, which was 30 to 35. I've always competed at adults, but I almost competed at adults there, but cooler heads prevailed. My professor and other people suggested, hey, it's your first time doing this. Maybe go try going with the older guys. And if you do really well, you could try, adults the year after. But I did well. I got second place. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time.
Well,
great experience.
Hats off to you. Going 3-1 at that level is obviously a great development for you. I can't wait to see this. I can't wait. The whole card is going to be incredible. As of right now, people should be going to 247fightingeither.com. That's the website, or 247 Fighting Championships Facebook. It will say this is the official Facebook page. There's a lot of scammers out there. It has 10,000 likes. So if you're on some 247 Fighting page, because a lot pop up to be scammers, and it doesn't have 10,000 likes, you're on the wrong place. Go find the one with 10,000 likes. That is the best in the best way. Also, even if you go to the correct Facebook page, do not click on any of the ridiculous spam links, even though they'll be under some of the posts. They happen so quickly. 247 can't always get rid of all of them. Sometimes they even happen on these posts that I post on MMA Fancast. Remember, the only place to buy tickets in person would be from Josiah or a gym, somebody in person, something like that. If you're looking to get physical tickets, but you can't track Josiah down, then go to 247fighting.com. That is the safest, best way. Make sure you give Josiah credit. Since Josiah pointed out that half of the people that will be supporting him will be pay-per-view, that's the ones that get hit the worst. the pay-per-view link. So please ignore, don't even look on Facebook. Ignore. Only get the link through 247 Live app. Download the app. It's an incredible app on any of the app stores. That's the best and safest way. Download the app, pay only through the app, get the stream only through the app. You'll have an option to pay for one fight and give Josiah credit. You even have the option to pay for the year monthly membership where you will get every fight 247 ever has done, the entire library, which a lot of people do. If you want to stream it and you don't have 247 Live app for some reason, then go to 247fighting.com and only get the link through there. That's particularly with Josiah being brand new. I know a lot of your friends will be brand new maybe to getting tickets. It's a lot different than getting tickets to a BJJ tournament or something like that. So please be careful out there. I know Hunter Homestead, the GM of 247, and the owner, Ryan Middleton, feel absolutely terrible when people get scammed, but there's nothing they can do. They haven't made any money. So if you get scammed, you're still going to end up needing to buy the legit ticket, which everyone hates, but that's the reality of scam artists. So shame on scam artists out there, but please be careful. 247 usually posts a warning a couple days before the fight, but I like to use my time to warn people as well. It's been absolutely incredible having you on the show. First time guests of the show are always fun. Thanks for giving the details, particularly in your recovery. How great is that? My name is Luke Basin from MMA Fancast. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That'll give you the best way to follow us going forward. My first time guest on the show, just a couple days away from a week of fighting at the Monroeville Convention Center for 247 Fighting Championships. Brawl in the Burgh 25 is Josiah LaDuke. Josiah, thanks so much for coming on. Best skills to you.
Thank you, Luke. Have a good night.